It's time to self-reflect. Yes, this is the self-reflection podcast, and a couple of things that we want to talk about today in terms of self-reflection. First thing is this. We're going to be reinvesting time into creating some merchandise for myself first, and then if you guys like it, we will offer it through one of the platforms here on the channel. Second, we have been taking voice lessons to learn how to project our voice and to be more emotive, more expressive with our communication style. This is a perfect place to showcase what we've been learning. Now, what I'd really like to get into today is a reading of Maximum Entertainment 2.0 by Ken Weber. This is one of the greatest books on the market today for performers, not just magicians, but this is from an individual who has critiqued and studied countless professional acts of performers and put into this book everything that you might need in order to start performing your own shows. So I want to do table reads. I want to start getting into reading my books, right? Because I have read bits and pieces of this book, but I haven't really invested time to sit down to read it. So that's what I'd like to do for you today. And looking over the book itself, we'll do a quick little review for you, which we already gave you. Nice little title. It's hardback because I prefer the longevity of the hardback when I'm not out and about. This is something I can sit and read at the house. And then I have paperback stuff that is, I like pocket size so that I can put it right into my pockets and take it on the go, especially if it's something that I'm trying to learn or if it's an audiobook, which is great for self-help stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look to see how many pages we have here in the book. Director's notes for magicians and mentalists. Acknowledgements. Let's see if there is a table of content. Here we go. Table of contents comes down to, looks like there's 25 chapters in total, 329 pages based on the table of contents. And then we're going to go ahead and read our way through all the way maybe to page 14. That's going to get us to chapter 1, and that's a good place to start for today. And then I will put a poll up on the channel to see if you guys are interested in having me read the entire book, really, as we go through this segment, and see how many sessions you want to do, like a chapter a day, however we want to do it. So let's go ahead and get started with the preamble. Wait a second. Sorry. They actually do the acknowledgements and everything before the preamble. Yeah, here we go. The forward and all that. Okay. Now we're ready to start. Acknowledgements. As with any good piece of magic, there is more to getting a book published than meets the eye. The process requires a team, and I was fortunate to have an A team on board. I love it when a plan comes together. References. Bob Dylan, Doug Diamond, Mark Sherman, and John Sherwood offered continuous encouragement and then polished, created, and kneaded this book into the product you now hold. Each, to varying degrees, is a wordsmith. Each has extensive performing experience, and they provided invaluable assistance. I also want to acknowledge Kathy Daly for the time she stole from her professional and home life to help with the proofreading. Mark Garrett assumed the arduous task of morphing my electronic bits and bytes into a physical, well-designed book. My sincere thanks to them all. As a disclaimer, as we go through, if I mispronounce anything, I will attempt to go back if I know I've mispronounced something. Names are going to be difficult if I'm not sure how to pronounce, but we'll get our way through it. Already messing up. Great start. Acknowledgements for the revised and expanded edition. Doug Diamond, his mentalism books are underground classics. Did most of the heavy lifting regarding editing, with additional editing and wisdom from two top-level pro performers, magician Nathan Coe Marsh and mentalist Eric Diddleman. And then John Handsome Jack Lovick swooped in toward the end of the process and applied his practiced eye to the text. Mark Garrett once again designed the interior of the book and gave the text a final once over. Thanks, guys. And special hugs and kisses to Neela, Melanie, and Keith, Daryl and Jen, Maya, Sasha, Ava, and Devin, who cared not one bit about anything in this book. They are the perfect balance in my life. Dedicated to Gil Eagles, who taught me the magic of sharing. Beautiful. Forward by Bob Baker, MD. When Ken Weber talks, the top mystery and entertainers in the world listen. When Ken Weber advises professional mentalists who earn hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, take his advice. Why? Because Ken Weber knows how to make a performance entertaining. And to the most successful magicians and mentalists in the world, maximizing entertainment is what matters the most. Can't agree more. Or less. Never understood that saying. We'll work on it. It's also what matters the most to our audiences. Frankly, it's the only thing that matters to them. But how do we learn to truly entertain an audience? We do hundreds or thousands of shows, learn from our mistakes, and over time we get better. However, wouldn't it be wonderful if a great coach could help us accelerate this process? An expert entertainer should have brought some water for this. An expert entertainer to watch us perform, point out our errors, and show us what to do to perfect our acts. A director, a mentor, a friend. In this book, Ken Weber can fill these roles for you. Well, thank you, Ken Weber. I appreciate it. Ken, of course, didn't start his performing career at the top of his profession. Like many of us New York performers, he began in the humble bungalow colonies of New York's Catskill Mountains, the Borscht Belt. I first became aware of Ken's existence when he and I were paying our performing dues there in the 1970s. Performing dues, a 1 a.m. show in a non-air conditioned rec hall for a hostile crowd just back from a losing night at Monticello Racetrack. In those days, Ken and I trod the same boards, but for me to say we were competitors would be blatant self-aggrandizement. As Ken perfected his show, his career leapt forward, and until he made a major career change, more on that later. Ken was one of the top mentalist hypnotists in North America. I've had the pleasure of seeing Ken perform many times. I've seen him turn a restless crowd of 1,000 cynical college kids into a stomping, cheering audience convulsed with laughter. I've also marveled as he performed under the toughest conditions and turned what would have been disaster for most performers into another successful show. That's why when the Psychic Entertainers Association wanted a performer to conduct an open critique of the professional mentalist who had entertained at the PEA's annual convention, they turned to Ken. What? Critique your peers publicly? Was the guy nuts? Well, that's what we all thought, but Ken pulled it off magnificently. So much so that he has been invited to repeat his seminar many times since. But while Ken was teaching others, he was also learning. He studied other performers. He saw a myriad of ways to help even the best entertainers improve. And then he decided to write it down. You hold the result in your hands. Here it is. In this book, Ken gives you tools and techniques that will enable you to advance from being a good performer to a great one. You will benefit from his 25 years of a performing experience before every conceivable type of audience. You will discover in a single reading what most magicians and mentalists never learn in a lifetime. Now, you may be wondering, if this guy is so great, how come I've never heard of him? Maybe it's because you've never seen any of his thousands of college or corporate shows. It might also be because Ken does not work magic conventions, lecture to magic clubs, or pontificate in Magic magazines. Frankly, he's too busy managing several $100 million of other people's money. His profession since retiring from full-time performing. But the fact that you don't know Ken Weber doesn't mean you can't learn something from him. And this is true whether you're an amateur performer or a working pro. Who knows? If I'd known way back then what I've learned from Ken since, I might not have ended up as a physician. So get ready to discover the real secrets of magic. You are about to hear from a master performer, expert analyst, and all around nice guy. Read, study, and learn. Apply what Ken teaches and watch the change in the way your spectators respond to your magic. You have nothing to lose but your audience. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Really sets the tone, and it gives us a beautiful place to go from. Now, this is the preface to the revised and expanded edition, because, of course, this is 2.0, so assuming that there was a book that preceded this, and this just has a little bit more information. Perhaps this will explain what that is. Now, of course, I've read this part before. As I said, I've read bits and pieces of the book. Here we go. Welcome, or if you've read the original version, welcome back. The first edition of Maximum Entertainment appeared in 2003. In the intervening years, many people ask me when I'll write another book, or at least a new version of the original. My answer was always, never. I'm too busy doing other things. Well, I'm still busy. Family, friends, running my financial firm, and other interests fill my days. Yet I happily admit that after the book was published, my connections to magic deepened and worldwide friendships increased greatly. I attended more magic conventions and saw much more magic and mentalism shows than I did previously. Yes, I still love it. But why write a new version of the book? In 2016, Stan Allen invited me to deliver a general session address to the 1,600 magicians at Magic Live in Las Vegas. I had infrequently held a microphone during the previous 10 years, and I certainly had not spoken to an audience that size in many years, although I often did when I was a full-time performer. The Magic Live talk was titled Raise Your Level, which in fact had been the working title of my book. As I prepared my speech, it became clear that I had far more than the allotted 18 minutes of thoughts about the performance of magic. That was a big push toward this effort. However, the biggest impetus for revising the book was the reception. Highly unexpected, truly. It received within the worldwide magic community. It became a bestseller. It's been reprinted 5 times. And many top pros have told me they regularly reread the book. Plus, the zero input from me, there are now Spanish and Japanese translations and a terrific audio version of the book. And just as I was wrapping up this new version, I learned that a Chinese translation was nearly complete. That group decided to wait for this new version to be published. Perhaps most gratifying of all was what happened in 2013. Matthew Field, a columnist for London's prestigious Magic Circle newsletter, the Magic Circular, surveyed a representative sample of members for an updated version of Anneman's hypothetical 5-foot shelf of magic books. 28 titles from all magic history made the list, and Maximum Entertainment was one of them. Considering that, aside from the book, I had little visibility in the magic world. No other books, no tricks, no lecture tours. I took that as an important validation of my efforts. And to be honest, seeing that list with my name alongside Magic's most luminous literary stars, Tarbell, Ganson, Page, Bobo, Berger, Damarez, etc., was immediately humbling and gratifying. Fun fact, the list included just 28 titles from anywhere in the world, and yet 2 of the authors on the list, David Kay and I, both attended the same junior high school. Years apart, I must add. David's seriously silly book, You Should Know, brilliantly explains his techniques for successfully entertaining children. Interesting, too, was that hundreds of performers told me about their favorite part of the book, and there was very little overlap. That indicated to me that the advice was broad based enough to cover a wide range of circumstances. All the above made me want to give back to the art even more. So here we are. As to why I didn't simply write a second book, I considered that option, but soon realized that much of what I wanted to say was directly related to the original material. Therefore, it made more sense to scaffold the new thoughts on the old. Plus, if you're among the thousands who read the book years ago, rereading the original tips might help reinforce some concepts you might have missed, or which perhaps didn't pertain to you back then but do now. In sum, this new book is filled with amplifications, clarifications, and additions. Most of the new material appears in the second half of the book, but just about every section and in some spots, almost every paragraph has been tweaked. I'll also point out that while most of the original book's comments about performances grew from viewing videos, in the intervening years the situation reversed. I watched tons of live performances and very little video, making, I believe, the comments even more practical and more grounded in the real world. One welcome change over the past 15 or so years is the surge in female magicians. Try to never refer to female magicians. They are magicians. However, being that the preponderance of magicians still are male, most of this book uses male pronouns. Sorry. Above all, I want to stress that just about everything in this book is based on watching professional magicians and mentalists. I love amateurs, but I rarely see them perform. A few times I heard from magicians who didn't buy the book because they picked it up, glanced at it, and didn't agree with what they happened to read. To which I say, of course, this is a wide-ranging overview and nothing will apply to all performers. That's why I urge you to read the book straight through. That's the only way to find the suggestions that apply to you. Finally, a word about the layout of the revised version. By and large, all the new thoughts and tips are integrated into the text. Some, like the words you are reading now, will obviously be new, and others are bracketed when I have a clear reason to differentiate old from new. That said, here we go, Ken Weber. Wow, so that is a great start and a lot of information there. Now, of course, we haven't even got into the section 1 for the preamble. That was just the starting stuff of the book, and we're already capping out our time, which is perfectly okay. So here's what I want to say for you today, okay? Let's leave it there. Start at section 1 on the next session, the next show, whatever you want to call it, the next episode. We're going to get into section 1 of Maximum Entertainment 2.0. So thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for the poll that's going to be coming up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel because it really does help. And of course, don't forget to check out a video that's over here that's just for you. Yeah, it's over here somewhere. It's over here. And of course, the subscribe is over here. So thank you, everybody. Remember, stay positive, stay active, and stay awesome. Hopefully, see you in the next one.